Yes, so let's get started. I'm here with Lily, and I'd like to introduce her to you as somebody that's going to give us some insight about Canada. And please, Lily, tell my students here in Norway a little bit about yourself.
Okay, I'm actually a first generation Canadian. I'm 99% Finnish and I'm actually 1% Norwegian. So my parents came to Canada about 50 years ago. And I actually grew up as an ESL student. I only spoke Finnish when I started school here. So I had a very thick accent as well. Canada, it's a beautiful place, very, very diverse. I'm a nurse. I'm also a foster parent taking care of children, and I'm a makeup artist and I do some acting as well. So that's a little bit about myself.
All right, I'd like them to know that we met under very, how do I put it, very unusual circumstances because we've only met online during the Miss Regal World pageant, which Lily won. So,
First runner up, and then the winner had to step down.
so can you also tell them about pageants and some of the stereotypes that people have? They have stereotypical views about what pageants are, and I want you to crash those stereotypes for them.
Sure. Well, my daughter started doing pageants when she was 6 years old, and they were completely life changing for her. She is now 14 and she gained so many public speaking skills, networking skills. She's been sponsored to be a public speaker twice in Europe, once in Ottawa, the capital of Canada, and it's brought so many opportunities. She has her own charity now. Pageantry is so focused on community service, on having a platform, just self-development. I'd say just a very small part of it is actually your physical appearance. It might not have always been that way, maybe 50 years back, but now it's certainly a different story. I'm in a pageant right now, and we have three components to it is community service, education, and mentorship. So those three are just you just get so much value to your life by participating in those. Always learning, always mentoring, learning from mentors, and also teaching what you know to others, and serving the community. So that's really what pageantry is about. Also, sisterhood, meeting people from all over the world, like Pollyanna. And I've been fortunate to meet many women in person through my travels who I've met online in pageantry, which is just really incredible. Made really good friends as well. So just such a small part is about physical appearance.
And I love that you're saying that because whenever I say pageants, I get the response, oh, the beauty pageants and swimsuit competition. And so people think of it as a very shallow experience when it's indeed not like
No,
that.
not at all. No, not in our
So,
experience. And another thing I want to add, which I think is kind of funny, my daughter, her dream is to apply to Harvard one day, and she has a mentor who's helping her, and she has to kind of create a platform, almost like a profile, if you will, like just kind of discussing what she's really passionate about, something really cohesive. And I thought it's like exactly like a pageant platform. So the skills she's learned from pageantry will even translate into the time when she's preparing to, apply for university.
so now let's talk about Canada. One of the reasons why I invited you to do this interviewing past experiences with Janice talked a little bit about Canada, but we focused her interview more on being a person of color in showbiz and different topics. I'd like us to focus on Canada. There are lots of stereotypes about Canada as well that are perpetuated in film and TV. I'd like you to tell us about how much those stereotypes apply or do not apply.
Well, I have heard people say, like, do you have bears roaming freely in the streets? And this actually happens. I live in Calgary. It's a pretty large city, about 1.5 million, 2 million people now. And we actually had a bear in the suburb area, and the bear walked up to the hospital and opened the automatic doors. A bear. Can you imagine if you're in the hospital and the door is open and a bear is standing there? So that really made me laugh because it's like such a stereotype and it actually happens. We do have sometimes wildlife going in our streets as well, which is very odd because we are a very large city, and so that is kind of a stereotype. It does happen though, rarely, but there's some truth to it, unfortunately. I think another stereotype is that Canadians are, like, everyone always says they want to put their Canadian flag on their backpack when they go backpacking because Canadians just have an image of being kind and trustworthy. And I do believe that's true for the most part. Canadians are very accepting of others, I feel as well. But there's one thing people always say about Canadians, they say A all the time, like EH, but I never hear anyone actually saying that. So, but I would say actually a lot of the stereotypes I think are actually have some truth to them. So.
At the beginning of the interview, I love that you pointed out that Ottawa is the capital
Mhm.
of Canada, but most people think it's Toronto. That's what
Yeah.
they usually think. And I want my students to understand more about Canada from your perspective because you have an authentic experience living there. There's also a misconception that Canadians and Americans are the same or they have the same pronunciation, the same accent, and same dialect. What do you have to say about that?
I think it really depends which part of the country you're from. There's so many different accents in Canada and so many in the US as well. Like if you go to the West Coast, East Coast, Midwest, there's the Texas accents, then the Boston accent is very well known as well. But it's really hard to say because I think Canada is so diverse and multicultural. So there are just people here from all over the world, and so a lot of people still do have their own accents from their home countries of origin. Like my mom, she's been here like 50 years, and she still has a very, very thick Finnish accent. So
Now, let's talk about the United States. How close is the relationship between Canada and the United States from your perception? Do you feel like it's a positive relationship? Are there many similarities or are there differences that make the two countries very different? What is your perception of this?
I think right now there is a pretty positive relationship, but I think it depends a lot on which political party is in power as well. I think there maybe wasn't the best relationship at times when Donald Trump was in power and we had Justin Trudeau in power because they have quite different ideologies. And Joe Biden is now in power in the United States. And so I think he has more of a similar ideology and political views as Justin Trudeau. So yeah, I think like for the most part from what I see that there has been a positive relationship overall. But I would say there is a lot of division nowadays, definitely between kind of more liberal views and more conservative views, both in Canada and the US, and different parts of each country as well. Like in Florida, they have very, very conservative views and very different laws than, say, California. or other states. And same in Canada as well too. I would say some parts are more conservative, like where I live in the province of Alberta. It tends to be very conservative, and there are other parts like Vancouver, which is in British Columbia. The West Coast seems to be more liberal minded.
One question that people always have about Canada is what percentage of the population really is French speaking, and how does that play a part in everyday life? Are the signs everywhere in French and English? Can you submit, for example, documents in French or English interchangeably? How does that work?
So most of the French-speaking population is in Quebec, the province of Quebec. I believe Montreal is the capital of Quebec, and I believe Montreal is the second largest French-speaking city in the world after Paris. One province called New Brunswick, they have kind of two official, like really official languages there is French and English. Quebec is more French, and then the rest of Canada, mostly English, but French is one of the official languages. Like in my province where I live, it's definitely not interchangeable. I think probably a pretty small percentage speaks French fluently here in the more of the west side of Canada. So I know I would definitely have trouble if I was trying to speak French or submit documents in French. But with any kind of government offices, I think they have to be able to accept them in French or English. And many government employees, many like flight attendants, there's certain jobs where they must have at least one French speaking person there all the time. And I would say also in our hospitals here, because there's such a diverse population, like in our hospital here, we have access to, I don't even know, I'm sure at least 20 translators at any given time for like Tagalog, Arabic, like so many languages. So it's pretty easy actually to be able to manage whatever language you speak here. There's somebody who can help you with any of the kind of government services. It's really good like that. And all the signage here in the area I live in, it's mainly in English, but if we do buy any products like shampoo or anything like that, it would have both French and English.
And that's interesting because I often when I talk to people and they say, "Do you want to travel to Canada?" They're like, "Oh, should I also learn how to speak French to travel there?" And so it depends on where you go, from what
In
you're saying.
Quebec, maybe. I have been to Quebec before, and I found there are a lot of French speaking people there for sure, but I was able to manage in English. And I knew a bit of French from school at that time. In some of the schools where when I was growing up, it was mandatory to learn French. And now it's actually they're offering Spanish in a lot of schools, Spanish or French. And some offer Mandarin here, which is really cool.
And how does that go with school in Canada? For example, for someone who has gone to school in the US and they want to travel to Canada, for example, they're in 10th grade and then they move to Canada, could they just go into the school system or are there adjustments to make?
I think it depends what kind of school system they've been in. Like here we have charter schools. My daughter attends a charter school, so it's publicly funded, but it's similar to a private school in a way. They have a uniform, and her school focuses on community service, character development, and really, really focused on academics. There's some private schools here, so if they did come from the US into a private school, they would have to write, I don't know if you have the SAT there. It's like a secondary school scholastic test. Um, I would say the curriculum is probably pretty similar. I would say it should be pretty much interchangeable for the most part.
All right, so we're over the 15 limit. It's just that nowadays, whenever I've been teaching for 33 years, and I noticed that over the years, it's very hard to keep people's attention for more than 15 minutes at a time. So I break my classes into 15-minute segments. But I want to thank you so very much for this. It's been very educational, and I'm sure that the students will really learn a lot from your interview.
Oh, thank you.
So we'll stay in touch on
Okay.
Instagram and Facebook, and
Yeah.
it's been
Sounds
lovely
good.
getting to know you over the past couple of years, even though we've never met in person. But
I know.
so yeah, so it's been fantastic. So I'm
Well,
gonna
can I come visit you one day if I'm in
absolutely, it will
America?
be
Okay.
wonderful to have you here.
Yeah, one of my best friends, she lives in Stockholm, so
Yeah,
I
it's
hope,
all these three countries are so close, and Finland too. They're all very close. So we'll definitely meet one day
I hope
in
so.
person. So thank you so much, Lily.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Bye.
Thanks.